Bonsoir French students, ça va? Bienvenue au chapitre 3. En Amérique, au Québec, un nouvel appartement. Okay, so we did a little bit of a lengthier introduction in French that time to this video. So you can see we are now entering chapter 3, the final chapter of French 101. So we've made quite a lot of progress already this semester. We're kind of in the final quarter of all the material that we're going to be learning in this course. And as you can see, we're going to be moving on to a different part of the French-speaking world with culture this time. We've looked at a lot of culture topics about France in the previous chapters, and I really do think it's time to move on to another place. And I'm really glad that you had the chance to explore a lot of other aspects and places of the French-speaking world in all your cultural discovery projects. That's been a really enjoyable part of this course for me as your instructor. I've learned so much just from looking at all your research. But the other French-speaking country that we're going to be looking at, of course, Canada, our neighbor to the north, is a bilingual country, and it is officially bilingual. Unlike here in the United States, we actually have no official language, which you might be surprised to hear. And there's no law or, rule or regulation that says English has to be the official language. It is by default because historically that's the language that became the most widespread. But there's no law and there's no bilingual status with English and Spanish, for example. There just happen to be a lot of Spanish speakers who live in the United States. So our language situation here in the US kind of happened just because historical circumstances created it. In Canada, however, two languages are mandated. They're part of the law of the land. So English and French have equal status. Although French is really mainly restricted to the province of Quebec. As you see from here, we're going to be looking at Quebec in this presentation. And there are some other surrounding areas that have some pockets of French speakers as well, maybe like New Brunswick, even Ontario. There might be some areas where people speak French. But the main place that is French-speaking in Canada would be le Québec. Okay, so in this presentation, we'll learn a little bit about the province of Quebec. I'm going to share some resources that are outside of the textbook, just because I think it helps you understand the place a little bit and the French that is spoken there. Okay, so as it tells us at the top, this is another géoculture, which would be like world culture, en Amérique au Québec. So now we're moving into North America. Okay, so we're going to try to put our reading skills to work like we did in some of the other géoculture topics that I've presented to you. So you're going to notice this expression you might not have seen before. Grâce au, so grâce à means because of or thanks to. So you can kind of think of it like giving grace, like when you say grace before a meal, you're giving thanks for the meal. Or if you've studied Spanish, you know that gracias is the word for thank you. So a lot of these languages, Romance languages like French, Spanish, Italian, etc., have a lot of similar vocabulary. So, grâce aux grands espaces du Québec. So you might notice the word grand is like big or tall. Espace would be space. And du Québec. So thanks to the big spaces in Quebec. Les activités de plein air. Okay, so activities basically in the outdoors. Plein air is almost like full air, like being outside in the great outdoors. So les activités de plein air y sont très populaires. Okay, you might not have seen this word y too much so far, only in the expression il y a, right? Like there is or there are. And this word y, when it's used just by itself like this, just basically means there. So les activités de plein air sont très populaires, are very popular there, except that the word order is a little different than it would be in English. So it's literally like saying outdoor activities there are very popular. We wouldn't use the same word order in English. In French, it's kind of placed in a different part of the sentence, but that would be the meaning. Okay, surtout les sports d'hiver. So surtout, okay, tout means all, and sur means above. So if you break that down into its parts and put it back together, it means above all. Sports d'hiver. D'hiver means winter. So winter sports like skiing, I know you recognize that. Hockey, so comme le ski, le hockey, et le patinage. And le patinage is exactly what these boys are doing here in the picture. They're playing hockey, but they are ice skating. Okay? That's, of course, a really important part of playing hockey. Okay, then looking at our image over here, we can see a welcome sign to Canada. So welcome to Canada or a bienvenue au Canada. Okay, le français est la langue maternelle. Any connections you can make with this word maternelle? Okay, you may not recognize it right away, but you'll probably understand what I mean when I say it means mother tongue. Okay, your mother tongue is your native language, the language you grew up speaking is your first language. And maternelle is connected to mother. Okay, so you might recognize that it looks a little bit similar, like to maternal, for example. So your mother language, your first language, French is the mother language or native language de 21% de la population canadienne. So remember the numbers you've been learning, 21%, so 21% of the Canadian population. Les francophones sont surtout concentrés dans le Québec. Et francophones, this is just another way of saying French speakers. Phone is related to sound, so people who speak French. And they are mostly, or above all, concentrated in Quebec. Okay, so we've learned a little bit about the landscape of Quebec. It's wide open, lots of spaces. It's a wintry climate, so people play a lot of winter sports there. 21% of the Canadian population speaks French as their first language, and most of them are in Quebec. All right, let's take a look at a couple of other photos we see here. Okay, so here it tells us fondé en 1608. So in 1608, the city was founded. Okay, Québec est la plus vieille ville du Canada. Okay, so you might remember this word vieille from maybe the first or second chapter. It was a while ago. Vieux is the masculine form, but since we're talking about a city, une ville, that's a feminine noun, we're going to use the feminine adjective vieille. So it's the oldest city in Canada. And often we refer to it in English as Quebec City, but in Canada it's simply called Quebec. That's the name of the city, and the province too. The building that you see here in this left photo is Le Château Frontenac, and it's really beautiful. It's like a spectacular old building, and it's kind of part of the central part of the city. You also see in a picture here, La Grande Allée est une des rues, rue is street, une des rues les plus célèbres de Québec. So it's one of the most famous streets in Quebec. And I'm sure I had the chance to visit a few places along that way. When I visited Quebec, maybe back in, I believe it was 2002, that I had the chance to be a youth volunteer there and to spend some time getting to know Quebec a little bit. And it's really a wonderful place to visit. One of the great things about Quebec is that it feels like kind of a hybrid between North America and Europe. So you feel some familiarity with the place. And this is true of Montreal as well. It feels North American because there's lots of English spoken, especially in Montreal. It's truly a bilingual city. Quebec is probably more French speaking. You might not run into as many English speakers there. But in Montreal, you really feel like, you're feeling the English speaking part of Canada, but at the same time, you feel the French influence there too. And people speak both languages very easily and regularly. Okay, a couple of other things I wanted to show you that is off the slideshow, just to look at some kind of images. Let me get to the right place here. Some images from Quebec City. Okay, so you can kind of see some pictures of these different places, like Le Château Frontenac. So this is really like this beautiful building. And let's see if we can get it to pop up here. It doesn't seem to want to show up. Oh, okay, this is like pictures of basically the hotel. Okay, so we'll just look at them this way. We have La Citadelle de Québec, the Parliament building, which is kind of in the same area. There's a cathedral there, the Notre-Dame de Québec Basilica. And, you know, those are just a few of the images that you might see of this very beautiful city of Quebec. Okay, the other thing that I thought would be interesting to share with you is a video where you get to hear some people from Quebec speaking. In MindTap, most of what you've been hearing there has been European French. And of course, this is where the language came from, so it would be natural that you would start by learning that accent. But I think it's important to be exposed to how French sounds in other French-speaking areas of the Francophone world. When I first visited Quebec, I had actually spent time in France before that. I lived with a host family and got to know European French pretty well, and that's what my ears were tuned to. And when I went to Quebec, I was kind of shell-shocked at first because I really couldn't understand anybody. It was really, really different. There's, you know, neither accent is better than the other, but I just wasn't used to it. And it took me some time to be able to retune my ears to be able to understand Canadian French. So I'll play just a minute or so of this video just so you can at least hear a sample of what Canadian French sounds like. It's a little bit different from European French. Okay, so these two girls are going to speak English first to introduce the video, but you will hear that they have a very subtle accent that sounds like someone who would be a French speaker, but it's probably not quite as strong as someone you would hear from France. Okay, so here goes. Okay, I'll stop it right there. It's just to give you a sample of what Canadian French sounds like. You may recognize the different accent, you may not at this point. I definitely can hear a different accent, but it's good to kind of know that, yes, French is one language, but it has many variations, just like any other language would. English is one language around the world. It's spoken in many different countries, but there are many, many variations of English, even within the United States. And all the different countries that you have been learning about this semester related to music and sports and the country profiles in general, you've seen a lot of variation in this one culture and in this one language. So it's really important to be aware of that. Okay, so we'll stop it there. And maybe you can look out for a coffee shop challenge related to Québécois culture coming a little bit later this week. But I hope you enjoy learning a little bit more about Quebec. Bonne nuit!